Hey guys, so every exception object that gets thrown inherits from the Throwable class. So we can see the Throwable class right here. And it splits off into the error and exception, and then exception splits off into runtime exception and some other stuff here that we'll talk about. So the catch or specify requirement states that the code in which an exception object is thrown must be enclosed in either a try statement, and this is something that has this kind of syntax. So we have our try and then our code here that might throw an exception, and then our catch. And secondly, it can also, instead of doing this way, we could have a method that states that it can throw the exception. So for example, we can have our method signature here, public static void readFile, and then we specify that, oh, this method might throw an exception. So we say throws, and then we have our exception name right here. So now let's talk about checked and unchecked exceptions. So the checked exceptions are the ones that really kind of have to do with the catch or specify requirement. So they won't compile unless you obey the catch or specify requirement. And these are conditions that a well-written program should anticipate. And it's something like, a user specifies a file that doesn't exist. Like what's the program going to do about that? So it's really these common kind of user mishandled errors that we have to account for. And these are usually, IO exceptions. So you have to take care of all your IO exceptions before you can even compile, because there's the catch or specify requirement. Now the unchecked exceptions are the ones that don't have to be, or they don't have to obey the catch or specify requirement. And this falls in the error class. So these are errors that are external to the application. And it's really not your fault as a programmer. It's something like a hardware or system malfunction. And you can't really do much except notify the user and close the program. And it's, like I said, it's not subject to the catch or specify requirement. So it's going to compile, but maybe not run during runtime. And for example, it's like a linkage error if your class dependencies are no longer valid. And another type of unchecked exception, which we'll be talking about more in this tutorial series, are runtime exceptions. So these are usually your fault, unfortunately, and you should really take care of these. And they're something like logic errors, improper use of an API, such as calling a method that doesn't exist. And I'm sure a lot of people have tried indexing an array out of bounds, whether it was now or when you were beginning programming, or something like dividing by zero. So we'll talk about this runtime exception class a lot more. So see you in the next video.